Hey, this is Kyle Carver from Strong Dads. Strong Dads podcast would love to thank the Crimers Beer House for coming alongside of us. The Crimers Beer House was started in 1982 by the Crimer family, and since that time, they have definitely become a Cincinnati favorite. So if you're looking for an incredible meal in an incredible setting, definitely go down to Route 128 and check out the Crimers Beer House.
All right, so Tyler, man, your story is amazing. And so you shared part one, the actual growing up, addiction, father situation, military. The liver story is amazing to me. I think you made that one up. That's crazy. That is so cool. If you didn't hear the liver story, you need to go back and you need to listen to that. That in itself is a testimony. But sometimes when we fall to our knees and we're humbled and we surrender, like we talked about in our show, our previous show, you become ripe for change. Yeah. You start seeking it, right? And you're looking for that better opportunity. So I now have a question, and the question is, what are you doing with it? What has it done? What's changed in your life? What has come from your surrender?
Yes. So, like I was saying before, a big part of that surrender was going through those 12 steps, and kind of as a byproduct towards the end, God was revelating me pretty frequently and prompting me to start a few things, a few kind of ministry ideas that I had. And by now I'd shifted from Church on Fire in Harrison to a church in Price Hill, just a small little church where my buddy pastored at. And I felt like God was telling me to raise money, and with this money we were going to just give it to people that were coming out of jail and treatment, and it was going to cover their first 2 weeks at a recovery house. There's so many people that have burned all the bridges, that have like no means to kind of connect to a place where they can kind of recover, because a lot of people, are either homeless, can't go back to mom and dad's for whatever reason, Is
that something you have found the first 2 weeks after that there's the hard week? Is that why you kind of came up with that, or is that?
Well, usually it takes a week or so for someone to find a job.
Okay.
So we felt like, the two week kind of
buffer.
Funding them for 2 weeks would give them a little buffer to get a job and get moving.
Okay, gotcha.
But that was the perfect kind of resource to just plug someone in.
Sure.
Yeah.
As far as, giving food or rides or resources, it was like, we felt like the rent piece, just connecting somebody, was the best thing kind of out there combating the addiction piece. And so I shared the idea with my cousin. I shared it with the pastor, and they were on board. And so, within 6 months, we raised, it was almost $30,000.
Wow.
And
that was through the church mostly?
That was through random. I mean, I had the prosecutor's office throwing me $5,000.
Wow.
That
is amazing.
Go get it,
I'm going to tell you there now, that again speaks to the idea of when it is God-based, right? If you were just, and I'm going to say this, like if you were just an average atheist dude who did not have any of this, but you just said, I want to help, those things don't last. They don't get off the ground. Yeah. The idea that when we attach it to something bigger than us, like Christ, it gets off the ground. Wow. Crazy.
Indeed. And so, we had this money. We called it, the church we partnered with was called Shiloh Methodist. So we called it the Shiloh Sober Living Grant. And so for a year, we just was connecting people. Yeah. By now I had a pretty powerful relationship with a lot of people down at the jail. And so we had our hands in the jail at a particular like recovery pod, or it was actually called the exit pod. And so we were down there weekly, kind of fishing for men. And I would get calls from random other people that were doing kind of recovery work saying, hey, I got this person getting out of here, getting out of there. So we did this for a year, and it was extremely fruitful. And after a year, God prompted me to start a meeting for a lot of these guys to kind of hit when they came out of jail or treatment, so they could have a place to kind of land. But the meeting was to be specific,
So meaning like, okay, this guy finds out he's going to get out. Mm-hmm. He hasn't secured any money from you yet for the 2 weeks or whatever, but you're just going to go down and have a meeting with these guys who've had drug issues.
No, so what I mean by meeting is when these guys get out and plug into a recovery house, we wanted to start a meeting where they could come once a week to
Gotcha.
attend.
Gotcha. Okay.
You know, kind of like with like a CR meeting.
Right, like a
Yeah.
AA, 12 steps, something like that, but they have a meeting to start with.
But it was going to be a specific meeting, and it was going to be staggered, kind of in an apostolic stagger, where you had, you know, the teacher, the pastor, etc., and then we had, you know, just Joe Schmo from jail, treatment, so
Right.
it was kind of, I had tried it before just on a whim where it was just all new guys, and it didn't, it was too much, too many new guys. So I was really, when I was seeking God on this, I feel like he was telling me to grab support from seasoned Christians and have these particular type of anointed men in so they could bring a certain dynamic to the meeting.
Gotcha.
And so when we had that, I said, look, I reached out to several people and was like, you know, you guys down to try this for 8 weeks, see what happens. And so it was like church times 10, you know, it was just on fire.
Yeah.
You know, because you have guys that are just broken, surrendered.
Their hearts are right.
They're ready for,
Yeah.
you know, for to be trained up, you know, and they're looking for hope, you know. And then you have we had a rock solid group of guys who just were very versed at teaching the word and just had, you know, kind of ministry experience that could bring all of that. You know, obviously I had a lot of recovery experience through the steps that I was adding, so it was this like Powerball dynamic in this meeting, and so they were like, you know, let's keep going. So as we kept going, more people would attend, and it was just every week was just, you know, it was like revival at this meeting.
You'd be looking forward to those meetings, weren't you? Yeah, just the excitement there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how the lit movement got birthed. It was, you know, just what can we do to take this thing to the next level? And so, you know, we ended up doing a launch party. Some of the funds that I had, you know, kind of raised for you know, the previous kind of ministry outreach.
Right.
Sure.
We had kind of we got the lit nonprofit now. So those funds kind of shifted over, and we said, let's kind of organize ourselves with lit to go take this thing to the next level.
Okay, so basically the Shiloh sober living thing has kind of now morphed into the lit movement.
Yeah, so the Shiloh Sober Living Grant was basically just funds we raised for the resource.
Right.
And it was under that church.
Sure. Gotcha. Okay.
You know, for the sake of we didn't really have a nonprofit, like how can we make this thing happen fast?
Right.
It was just the church was like, here, we'll be your
help
finance arm.
Right.
Yeah.
To you know, and they would like do the accounting and send the checks out. So it was
Right.
perfect for that season. But as we were getting more guys and
Yeah.
wanted to really spearhead this thing, you know, they blessed us with the residual finances we had, and we were under our own nonprofit now called the Lit Movement.
What does lit stand for? Is it LIT?
LIT. So Lit stands for Living in Testimony, which, you know, we felt like living in testimony is kind of what you do in recovery, discipleship, like.
Well, we all have a testimony, but that one carries a lot of pain to it, a lot of hurt, but a lot of opportunity for growth.
Yeah.
Indeed. And so, you know, we decided to do a launch party. I also was seeking the Lord. I felt like he was telling me, like, capture what's going on here. So we had a video that we had created that kind of captured this story. We had our branding kind of solidified, the website solidified, and then we did this launch party on Fountain Square. And, you know, I remember I think we reached out to the mayor when we were doing a fundraiser for the Shiloh thing a year prior. So it was almost to the day, a year later, we're doing this launch party. And I remember reaching out to the mayor's office, like, hey, can you help us with this thing we're doing?
Yeah.
And, you know, we're explaining the story, explaining where we're at, what we're trying to do. And they're like, because we were like, we want, you know, Fountain Square.
Right.
And so they were like, well, here, call this person. And so that opened up another door, and finally we got the permit to get Fountain Square. So Fountain Square is where we did this big launch party, and we had another church kind of donate a big jumbotron. We showcased this video, gave away a bunch of Chipotle that we had donated and sold a bunch of T-shirts, had a few bands and music artists perform on the stage downtown, and just kind of just put it out there in the middle of the city, like, hey, this is what we're doing, this is who we are. And within like maybe 2 weeks later, another ministry who we were kind of tight with in Price Hill was like, hey, we got this house. It needs to be renovated, but we have grant money to renovate it. If you can organize the manpower, you can do whatever you want with it. And we're like,
wow.
Perfect. So over the course of about a year, we kind of fundraised, found volunteers, paid some people to kind of make this thing happen where we renovated this house in Price Hill. I mean, it's smack dab in the hood. It's right off of kind of 8th and State. It's off of Neve, which is, the block is hot. You know,
Right.
you know where it's
I
at?
know exactly
Yeah.
where it's at. Yeah.
So anyways,
Block is hot.
despite
Can I use that? I
you
don't want to use that word.
you can steal that. So, a lot of people would say, we're trying to deter us, like, hey, you're going to be in a high drug traffic area and, all this and all that. And I'm just like, I believe this is from the Lord. So we're moving forward,
Yeah.
And so, there's been drive-bys. It's like our block's protected, like the street. And there's definitely drug activity on the peripheral, but it was right in front of the house because there's a park right next to us. And it's like everything just shifted as soon as we kind of moved in. And the cops basically said, hey, you can control that park. Lock it up. So we control the park.
Oh, wow.
And
Because you're really helping them.
yeah,
Help the neighborhood, yeah.
because people were selling drugs and just littering in this little park. It's about maybe a half of a block. It's not a huge park, but
Right.
but still people were hanging out, just doing dirt. And there's a memorial from a dope boy got shot right in front of the park on this tree. So it's just like a ton of people gather once a year because this guy got murdered. So it's still kind of active, but we control the park. And for the most part, we haven't had any issues with our guys dealing with the riffraff down there. Now, if you're from the country or not really experienced or hip to that kind of,
You might not feel comfortable there.
Exactly. 'Cause I got a lot of people who won't come down, but for real, for the most part, guys who are serious about their walk with God and serious about the recovery, it's almost like there's a protection down there, And so we had that one house open for almost a year, and then we were kind of gifted the house across the street. And so we renovated that a little bit and that was, our second house, which is literally right across the street. So there's 2 down there in Lower Price Hill. And then, about a year ago, also we were donated a house in College Hill that was, it's right on the strip on, Hamilton Avenue.
Yeah.
And there was a big fire. One of my buddies, got it really cheap. Was just like, do your thing.
Yeah.
Gave me the keys. And so over this course of the year, we've been fundraising pretty diligently. We had a big golf outing, was successful, and just totally decked this thing out. We needed to kind of renovate everything. So, new HVAC, new paint, plaster, roof, decks, everything. And we kind of assembled a lot of volunteers, the guys from our house, just a hodgepodge of help and resources. And, it's been open for about a month now. So we do have 3 houses. All of them just been kind of got birthed. We haven't really had to try too hard to do any of this. It's just kind of,
And that's such a cool thing. Sometimes when we feel like we're banging our head against the wall, it's God saying, maybe that's not the wall you should be banging your head against. And then you have other things where it just happens. It comes and you're like, I feel like maybe this is just the path God needs me on right now. The idea that those homes are kind of just they're available. And they're being put to you. You keep saying we got this, we got that. Are you the primary? I know you have a board and stuff for the Lit movement, but are you the primary guy running things, or is there another person with you, or how does that work?
So right now we just have a team. Our kind of boots on the ground staff. We have an outreach director. His name's Jim Green. I got a housing director, Josh Barth, and then I'm the executive director.
Okay.
So we're kind of just, now that we kind of had that third house finished, now our focus is really cherry picking guys that are just hungry for the Lord, really serious, just grabbing soldiers. And that is a process to kind of, a lot of houses will just, if you got the money, come on in.
Right.
So we really try to just look for people that are sold out, that are ready, that are ripe, that, that are just,
because otherwise you can recognize total surrender or just partial surrender, can't you?
Oh, yeah.
And that manipulation that we talked about earlier, those kind of things are when we were like, well, we're not totally surrendered yet. Like in my line of work that we do at Rock Solid Families, Linda and I talk all the time about we really don't know the definition of rock bottom. Like when we say, man, that guy's hit rock bottom. Oh, he's hit rock. Because I'm a wuss, man. Like my rock bottom's not as low as a lot of people's. And you think, how low can that guy go? And he's still manipulating. He's still trying to finagle something. And you're like, well, he's not hit his low yet. Like you were in and out of rehab and stuff many, many times. And you were still even talking about how I'd manipulate. And so when you're still manipulating, you're not rock bottom.
No.
You're not rock bottom, because we talked about the idea of surrender. What does total surrender, absolute surrender look like? And I'm better at detecting that, but I'm still not great. I got a feeling you're pretty good at seeing that in the clientele that you work with.
Yeah.
And you call it out?
Yeah, there's a little Q&A. You can discern that really quickly.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So, all right, so now we got the lit movement going. We've got 3 homes. All of this has come from basically your story, right? The seed of energy for all this comes from, we always say, man, I don't want to go back through that garbage I went through, but I certainly am I'm glad I'm through that and now doing something with it. Yeah. So now I got a guy who's in lit, all right? He's in one of your homes. So what does this guy get? I mean, what is this program? Is it a program that he's in? Is it just a home, a place to lay his head? What is the lit movement?
So if a guy comes in, kind of what they're expected to do, it's high accountability in a culture that is really geared towards pressing into God. And what that looks like is they have to work one type of fellowship for their recovery, whether it be AA, NA, or Celebrate Recovery. Celebrate Recovery is actually, definitely taking root, and a lot of guys are working that now in the houses. So they have to work the steps in one of 3 fellowships. They have to go to 4 outside meetings in that one of those fellowships. We have 2 in-house meetings that we do every week. They got to be working with a sponsor or a mentor. Okay. And then that once a week we, check in with them to see where they're at in their progress. Because it's, the steps is kind of like a personal kind of journey you go on, examine yourself, clearing up, your past with someone helping you kind of walk through that. So we hold them accountable to that. And every week we check in to see where they're at with that. They do have, chores. Every day you got a chore. There is a curfew. Which is pretty reasonable. You can take overnights after a certain amount of time, so guys can go if they're, some of them are married or have family and kids and all that. So they do go out with their families, every once in a while. And then they got to work full time. So all our guys, I think we got one guy right now that's kind of looking for work, but, the majority of everyone in the house is working full time. You got to work first shift, and usually guys are hitting meetings in the evening and stuff. So you got to be working full time. There are house fees that you pay, and then you have to have a home church.
Okay.
So a lot of the guys kind of go to the same church, but we try to, expose all these guys to, a lot of them come in like, I've never been to church in my life.
Sure.
And so, we try to create a culture where if a guy who's broken, has no clue about God, there's one particular guy I'm thinking about who came in and said, I've never been to church, I have no idea about God, and that was about 3 months ago. The dude's like on fire right now, and and like has a prayer life, and he's going to church, just getting exposed to, in a very authentic, organic way, getting exposed to God, really doing some of the recovery work, getting a prayer life, and being consistent on really seeking God, and God speaking to him on multiple different levels. And, that's what I tell all these guys. Like, okay, don't worry if you don't know nothing,
Right.
or you haven't had an experience with God. Like, trust me, God will speak to you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Just keep seeking him.
He grabs you where you're at, and I think that's hard a lot of times. One purpose of Strong Dads here is a lot of guys won't even walk into a church because they don't connect, or they feel like they'd be rejected. And it's like, don't worry about where you're at. Just seek him, and just keep an open ear, and he'll start talking. He'll weigh on your heart. That's the Holy Spirit working, and somehow that comes off as something mysterious to people, but it's like, no, just humble yourself and start listening, and God will bring you at your pace.
One thing I really liked you were talking about, Tyler, is the accountability in the house and what that means for you guys. And I'm sure that that's not by accident. I'm sure that has something to do with your story, being held accountable for your actions, and you went back and made things right. You were held accountable in a sense, basically, God put this on your heart and you were held accountable for that. So I'm sure that's not by accident that the Lit movement has accountability for those guys that are a part of that. And I think that's a really cool piece that you guys are doing. And I'm sure because of that, you have those successes. If you were, just a place for guys to come and rest their head and no accountability, the success may not always be there. And I think the accountability, it speaks volume to what you guys are doing there. So I think that's really cool.
Thanks.
Yeah. So I'm sitting here thinking, like, okay, you went through this sobriety process and failed multiple times.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I'm in the back of my head, I'm seeing your dad. Okay. Your dad's back there, and he's like, son, I love you, but this is truth. Son, I love you, but this is truth. And so he was steadfast, right? So what does that look like in the Lit movement, and even for you now? So you're kind of in charge of this, but yet these guys, how they walk, and their path. So what happens when guys start to fall, or they're not quite where they need to be? How do you speak that truth? Is there a final, like, nope, sorry, you're out? Or how do you get them through?
Yeah, so we have weekly house meetings where, a lot of that stuff is called out. Sometimes if you can, rebuke or call someone out in a group setting with their peers, it can be really effective.
Yeah.
From little stuff like, I don't know, leaving the TV on all night, being loud, waking people up. Just little stuff where people just act really selfish and their character flaws come out. Sometimes if you can correct that in a group setting, it can be effective. I know other guys who, just to give you an example, one guy, was trying to do the right thing, still had a girlfriend who was on the fringe, and, she was going through withdrawal. He was trying to help her out, he ended up buying her some weed. And we're just like, we were about to kick this guy out. We're like, look, what do you think is how is that right to buy your girlfriend weed, and people overheard you, and and he's like, well, I didn't think about it, did it? So we pulled him along the side, me and another leader, and just kind of, went in and kind of dissected that, and was just kind of, spoke truth to it, and kind of like, we're like, look, you have a calling on your life, you have potential, but this is where you need to be, and this is where you are. You need to make a choice. We're going to give you a week to kind of, let your actions dictate where you're going to go. And so by just kind of pulling someone aside with two people that can speak life, that know the manipulation, that know the lies, and know that know that talk, they can just call it out right away.
Yeah,
is very effective as well.
Yeah, I bet.
Because a lot of times, my parents, God love them, they were trying to, well, Tyler, they give me a little truth, but it was like, no, you don't exactly know what I'm going through.
Right.
But if you have someone who's been there, done that, knows the vocabulary, knows the technique, that can just, no, hold on. That's what that is. That's BS. Boom.
Yeah.
And just put it out.
Yeah.
That can redirect somebody very effectively,
It's such a huge point. I definitely see in the work that I do, sometimes I know I'm getting ready to blow something up big by the next words I'm going to say. But I always, I kind of, my wife and I kind of work through this in terms of how we just handle situations. And I'm like, it's time to blow this one open, because it's just going to keep getting kicked down the road. And so, it's going to be ugly. It may not work well, but I need to call it out. I need to blow it up, and let's just move. let's see how it goes. And it's hard to do that when you're a parent or you work through emotion.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to, oh no, I don't want to upset him. I don't want to. And sometimes you just gotta, as long as you've earned the right to be trusted.
Mm-hmm.
All right, like I'm not blowing smoke up you here. You can trust me, but I'm going to shoot straight with you. Sometimes you got to blow it up with people, and that does not always land well. But it's how we have to get to the hard places to start growing.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, that's crazy. Good stuff. So, how long do people stay in a lit house?
Well, we've had guys. 2 guys moved out. One of them stayed a year and a half. The other one stayed about 2 years. Roughly, guys can stay. There's no time limit they can stay, but roughly, to go through that process, the steps, really clearing up a lot of wreckage, getting out of debt, it's really setting yourself up for success and having some savings to move out. Roughly, it's about 18 months to kind of go through that.
Right.
It took me about 18 months. I was working pretty diligently, but that's moving 18 months, moving your feet. But some guys, like I said, we had a guy just move out who was pretty successful. He stayed about 2 years and some change. So, and then guys, a year or maybe a little less will kind of get on their feet and continue their journey, but, go and we've had a couple guys get married and move out,
Right.
move out, get married, and stick that route. Like,
but if they move out, so like, hey, I've bandaged up the broken relationship with my wife. I'm working. My life's good. Can I move back with her but still attend the function of lit, the programming?
Yeah. So the meeting we do on Sundays is an open meeting for men down there, kind of in Lower Price Hill. We got a storefront that we use, kind of right on Neve Street, big meeting space, and so that's anywhere from 25 to 35 guys every Sunday at 4:00, and so sometimes we'll have guest speakers come down. Sometimes different people come down. There's a lot of people who've kind of graduated the program come down, and it's just just a big group of men that meet every week, and all the guys in the houses are there as well. So it's kind of like our big recalibration meeting every week on Sundays.
Okay. Are you at a point where? So I was getting ready to say, how can people get in touch with you if they need help and those kinds of things? And I still want to say that, but what's your capacity? How many can you handle?
Sure.
Yeah.
So right now, with our third house open, we got 30 beds.
Oh, okay.
Between the 3 houses, you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So 30 beds. You can go to our website at www.thelitmovement.org.
Okay.
And there's I think it says reach out or contact us, and that'll go to actually goes to my email.
Okay.
And I usually respond back to people. Every once in a while I get an email in there, maybe a couple times a month, of people that are just interested, want to know more, or have someone who's either in jail. Sometimes we'll go visit that individual in jail.
Okay.
Wow.
Or if they're in some particular treatment center, we'll reach out and try to make contact to build that relationship, so when they do complete, we can bring them in. We've done that a lot too.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 30 beds, that's a lot for 3 homes. So a lot of guys, they might share rooms or stuff like that, 2 beds in a room or whatever.
Yeah. Well, most of the guys have roommates.
Okay.
2 of the houses are huge, big 2 families.
Yeah.
So we got a decent amount of space.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
As I'm kind of thinking through all of that process, is there like a house parent or whatever that lives in each home that kind of oversees everything?
Yeah, so they're called house managers. Some houses have a house manager and an assistant manager.
Okay.
So the house manager is, someone who's a little more seasoned in their walk, that is kind of conducting the house meeting once a week, and letting them have privileges like overnights or whatever. That kind of checks their meeting attendance through our system, our software.
Right.
And so he has like a pulse on kind of where everyone's at. So there are house managers.
Yeah, because that's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have availability currently? So there are some beds open and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think we have since we got that new house open, there's eight to 10 beds open.
Okay.
Wow.
All right.
So yeah.
So that's definitely something we want to get out there to everybody.
Yeah.
That's an opportunity for people to see and hopefully get some help with. All right. Man, this is just crazy stuff. Good stuff. Oh, all right. So, Tyler, man, I just love the story. Thank you for your time today. I think the biggest part that I just pull from this is just how we can be redeemed, right?
Yeah.
And we're all broken. We all fall apart. We have challenges. I also think the whole thing with your dad just does not leave my mind. That the divorce hurt you, right? The divorce was tough. I think that's another message. Sometimes we think, oh, well, it's no big deal. But it is a big deal. And this is not to blame mom or dad or anybody. It's to go, okay, this is why this is important. To get to humble yourself, to work on those marriages because your kids need you, right?
Exactly.
But, man, your surrender and the redemption and how you're using that now, you are allowing Christ to use you as hands and feet to do this whole thing. You know, one of the challenges that I have is I work with some people with addiction just through our ministry, but I never feel qualified. Addiction's not been my issues. I got plenty of issues, trust me, but addiction's not been my issue. And so I'm quick to refer to guys like yourself. Like, I want you to go to this place or to this guy because your understanding, your compassion for that, but yet your ability to hold the line because you know how it can be abused is just head and shoulders above my ability. I can do things more textbook style, but you've lived it. So I just thank you for that and keep being used that way.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good
for
stuff.
sure. I definitely think a big takeaway, man, just like Merle was talking about, that surrender, man. Know, you guys out there know that there are people like you, Tyler, that want to help. There's guys out there that you are not alone. And you know, if you're struggling with addiction, if you're struggling with whatever in life, man, there's people out there. You know, Rock Style Family, a great outlet. Man, reach out to people. People want to help, and sometimes it's hard. But knowing that the resources are there, that you have someone that can help you, that can come alongside of you, man, I think it's very powerful. It's a great takeaway to know that you're not alone in your walk, man. There's guys who want to come alongside of you, that want to tell you who Jesus is, man. Reach out, seek those people because they're out there.
Yeah. Go
Just
ahead.
add one thing to that. So, like, with me and all my buddies, like, one of like the coolest things that we like always kind of like talk about is when we find somebody who's like just 100% willing. Because there's a lot of people that, you know, just want to get rid of like the consequences,
Right.
or want to get back with this person, or just want to get the job and all that. But when we find somebody who's rock bottom, 100% willing, like it's like a
You can't wait.
special
can you?
thing, and
Yeah.
people are, like you said, there's tons of people that are really seeking out those people that are ready to take that step, you know. So there's definitely, you know, men that are ready to grab your hand, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you are watching this on YouTube right now, you can see that we have the contact information up, and that's what we've been airing here for the last few minutes. This is a big deal, this addiction thing, getting people help. Primarily, you guys work with dads or with men, but, you know, what would you do if somebody called and there was a lady having this challenge? Do you have resources that you refer
Yeah, so we
to?
have definitely female resources, but like, spoiler alert, we're about to open a female's house.
Okay.
I think.
Oh, man.
Cat's halfway out of the bag.
We're about to start fundraising, I think, this summer for the female house, and we have
Wow.
somebody identified
Okay.
to take the lead role in that, a female. And so, stay tuned for that.
Man,
That's awesome.
So this is how these things kind of grow, all through hurt and pain, but good things come from it. So if you have somebody in this situation, definitely reach out through the web or through the phone number that is listed up on the screen. Kyle?
Man, Tyler, I really do appreciate it. I mean, I think you got a really, really neat story that needs to be heard. So definitely, dads, go out there, share this story, man. Tyler's got something here the more people that hear this, it might reach out and touch one person, and that one person needs to hear this message. So definitely encourage you guys to go out there, definitely share what Tyler was telling us today, man, what he was sharing. Tyler, greatly appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your story. And definitely, before we do sign off here, definitely want to thank Crimer's Beer House and Casey's Outdoor Solutions for coming alongside of us. Greatly do appreciate that. And you good?
I just want to thank you, Tyler.
Yeah,
thank you, man.
It's an honor.
It's not you expose yourself when you could tell these kind of stories, but there's a purpose in it, and so I appreciate it. And great job. Keep doing what you're doing.
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, love your heart.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right.
Go out there and meet some strong dads.
To welcome Casey's Outdoor Solutions as a new sponsor to our podcast. Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Casey's offers a wide selection of plants, landscaping materials, home and garden decor, and gifts for every occasion. Casey's is committed to providing exceptional service, a unique shopping experience, and value to every customer. Stop in and see what makes Casey's so unique. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana, or call 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home.